So a big part of public policy in the environment is looking at sustainability and how do different public policies influence the overall sustainability of our Earth, of our society, of our actions. So sustainability has a pretty specific scientific definition, right? Which is that it's the ability for a process to continue at the current rate indefinitely without depleting or degrading resources. So basically, it's the ability for a process to keep going forever, right? Without running out of anything, right? So not just for a long time, but forever, right? And it's really about meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Right? So you're not just concerned about yourselves, you're concerned about your children and your grandchildren and your great, umpteen millionth grandchildren and kind of humanity as a whole. So when we consider sustainability, there's really three components that we need to think about. Right? It's not just about the environment, although I teach environmental science, that's often where we first focus. But it's really not solely about environmental sustainability and, are the choices we're making good for the environment and sort of preserve those resources like clean air and clean water and trees and plants and animals and things like that. But it's also about economic sustainability, right? If something's great for the environment but a huge money pit, it's not going to, in the long run, be sustainable, right? It's not going to continue to be used. It's not going to work, right? And the third piece is society, right? Which is looking at kind of cultural and how is that affecting the people who are in the area, who live with these choices. Something can be great for the environment, great for the economy, not work for people, in which case it's still not going to work. So the real truth is sustainability is really when you have the intersection of all three components, right? This middle part of the Venn diagram here. So as we look at any sort of public policy, if we look at any sort of environmental law, any sort of plan, we need to evaluate all three pieces here. Right? And there's a bunch of questions that we really need to ask ourselves. So we're going to break those down into kind of those three categories. So in that environment category, if we're looking at something, right, like the Big Dig in Boston, we want to look at, in the environment category, we want to be asking what resources are being used. Are those resources able to be renewed or regenerated, right? If the answer is no, then in the long run, it's not sustainable. You can't keep, you're going to run out, right? If they're renewable resources, then maybe it's sustainable. But if you're using them faster than they're regenerating, still not. Are plants and animals being damaged? If so, is there some way to mitigate that or kind of compensate for it? Is biodiversity being maintained? Does this activity cause air pollution, water pollution, soil erosion? Does it generate waste? Where's that waste going? And will it help to conserve natural resources like air, water, land, space, habitat, things like that? Right. In that economic category, we want to look at, well, what's the economic impact of this activity, right? We're talking pure like dollars. What's the costs? What's the benefits, right? Is it going to break even, at a profit, at a loss? But also, does it create meaningful and satisfying work for individuals? So it's not just about the dollars, it's also about jobs, and job creation. Does it allow people to do their jobs more efficiently? Does it contribute to a community's economic development, right? Does this activity kind of create other economic opportunities that work their way out through the community? Right? And then does it rely on products or services that have negative effects on the environment or society? So if this one kind of economic thing maybe in and of itself doesn't have huge negative effects on environment or society, but relies on another industry that does, ultimately it's not going to be sustainable. Right? And then within that society piece, we want to look at, does the activity contribute to people's quality of life? right? Do people benefit, some people benefit from this activity at the expense of others? So kind of a justice piece here, is this a social justice thing? Is some helping some, hurting others? Does it affect people's cultures? Are the individuals and communities involved in making the decisions about the activity, right? Or is that an outside kind of organization coming in and just laying down the law? And does it offer more options or opportunities to certain groups of people than others, right? So this is really getting into some questions of equity, equitability, and community involvement, as well as cultural and society. So we're going to get into the application piece now, right? Which this is going to be an assignment for you guys. So I want you to think of an activity or a project that's happened, has happened, or is currently happening kind of within your community, right? However you choose to define that, that has some environmental and community impact. So, for example, in Boston, supposedly they're finally done with the Big Dig, which is building all of those tunnels. Could be building a golf course, could be expanding a sewer system. There's a lot of different things out there. So think about kind of something that you're familiar with. I don't want you to have to do a ton of research about the activity or the project. Just think of something you're familiar with that's happening. And then what you're going to do is use the questions from that previous slide and answer those questions about that activity or project you selected. And we'll have some further instructions for how to do that and how to submit that posted up on Schoology.